Tonight, we celebrate the life of London News. Rather than mourning his passing, it has been quite some time since London News departed this earth and went to join the great racetrack in the sky. And it is directly as a result of the vision of Jimmy Lithgow that I was privileged enough to have anything to do with London News. In fact, it saw the start of my international career. And I thank you, London News, for having taken me around the world. Let's find out from Jimmy Lithgow exactly what gave rise to this decision.
It was just after London News had won the J&B Met in 1997 that the Jaffies announced that they were going to mount a campaign to win the QEII Cup in Hong Kong, which might have seemed a little bit far-fetched then because no South African horse had done anything abroad since the days of Hawaii, and Hawaii had been exported. I mean, this was a case of a horse being taken over with a specific task in mind, and it was an exciting thought. Andrew Bond approached me. I was manager of Highveld Racing Authority's marketing division at that time, and suggested that he and a cameraman go over to Hong Kong and cover this event. And we agreed to that, and thank goodness we did, because we came away from it with fantastic footage that Andrew used to send back to South Africa for editing here, and we would produce these little documentaries to build up excitement about London News's assault on that big race in Hong Kong, and it generated enormous interest and excitement. And as an experiment, it proved absolutely invaluable, and I only wish that we documented more on some of the great horses in times past. It was certainly a lesson well learned.
Well, Mill Hill was in fact Alexander Garrett Laird's first Grade 1 winner, since having taken over from his mighty father, the late Sid Laird.
Mill Hill, I tried. At the line, Mill Hill has beaten I tried in Cloud High.
Well, if my memory serves me correctly, it was Gavin Finzale that was aboard Mill Hill that day at Gosforth Park, and although she was your first Grade 1 winner, there's little doubt in my mind that London News is the best horse you've ever had to train, and who knows if there'll ever be another one like him. But how did you get to train London News at the end of the day?
Laurie and Jean Jaffe, they wanted to get a Bush Telegraph was the sire, and they raced Bush Telegraph. And they asked me to look at Bush Telegraphs at the sales. And there was a couple of nice ones, but and London News he was kind of an ugly duckling type, you know. He was a leggy horse. He was light in the middle, turned out in all four, but there was something about him that made him athletic. And besides that, Jean Jaffe liked him a lot. And I did try and get them to buy some other horses in the sale, particularly a horse called Harmony Forever. I was mad about him, and they didn't buy him. He went. I mean, I don't know if we could have bought him. He went for quite a bit of money to some strong buyers, but but we hadn't bought a horse by the time it came to the last day of the sale. And every time Jean Jaffe asked me, what about this one here, London News? He got nicer. He got nicer every time she asked, because they hadn't bought a horse yet. I said, well, we better get one. And look, I liked him. Nobody could make him a number one pick on the sale. He had a big Roman nose. As I said, he was light through the middle, but there was something, and thank goodness Jean liked him, and that counts for a lot.
The man responsible for the breeding of London News was the late and great Wilfred Coster. Down at his Cheveley Park stud, London News was a son of Bush Telegraph out of the great mare Soho Secret.
Well, you know, he was never a great-looking yearling. That Jean Jaffe went to Laurie and said, Laurie, if you don't buy this yearling, I'm not buying another yearling ever. It's amazing, absolutely amazing. Because he wasn't a great-looking yearling. He was on the leg, he was leggy, he didn't have a great girth, he was immature.
When he came into training, where did he come from? Did he go back to the farm? What was the program with him from the time that you acquired him at the sales?
He went off with another couple of horses to a pre-training place. Val Davidson, in fact, she's back in the business preparing horses at Sean Terry's stable now. She took him to, she had him at her place in Honeydew. She let him come in nice and light, and since then, I mean, it's taught me how a baby should be. I mean, his ribs were showing. He was light, But there's only one way from there, that's forward.
He raced, if I can recall, on 5 or 6 different racetracks for his first few starts.
7, actually.
7 racetracks, yeah?
His first 7 starts were 7 different racetracks, which is not that easy to achieve in South Africa. I mean, maybe in another country you can, but 7 starts, 7 different racetracks, and winning 4 of them in a row. It's a fair horse.
Okay, precocious he wasn't, but what happened in his first race?
Oh gosh, his first run, it was embarrassing really. He didn't know what to do. Actually, it was a small field, I don't know if it was 9 runners, and I told Mr. Jaffe, I said, I think he can run a place. It's his first start in the 1200, he can maybe run a place, but in my heart I was hoping that he would surprise us all and win it, and then I could turn around and say, look, we got a nice horse. And he jumped out and he didn't know where to go. He put his legs sideways, he was lost, 17 lengths back, and Laurie Jaffe said to me, well, what happened there? I said, well, if I knew he'd run like that, I don't know if I would have run him, but he just got stage fright. And his next run was a lot better, and then he won a mile in weak company and didn't look back from there.
I remember him winning at Newmarket. I remember him winning with Johnny G at Germiston, and then I remember him winning really, really impressively in the Dingons. I think that's the first time we realised that this was sort of superstar material.
Yeah, as you pointed out, I mean, horse has to prove it on the track. We always had hopes for him. When he won his maiden, I kind of said he might be a Cape Derby horse. And then he won the novice, and I said we won't say much, but when he won the 3rd one in a row, I said, okay, I think now we can win the Dingons, and if we win the Dingons, we can win the July. I mean, he did it all.
But they got no answer for London News, is now starting to spread eagle them, and this one's rumoured a good one. London News going to come home winning by 5 lengths. 200 to go, and London News about to hit the front. Nickel Mania's running on, Blue Monarch between them. London News and Nickel Mania, but London News in front. London News now starting to stretch clear and win smartly.
As they race him inside the final 200 now and down towards the inside. London News has swept clear. London News for Laurie Jaffe is clear in the Dingons as they go into the final 100 metres. Cato Court is chasing shadows with Ashton Town. London News will win it easy. London News, a very easy winner.
Well, what had happened, he'd been beaten in Cape Town. He ran 2nd in the Guineas, 3rd in the Derby, and both were disappointing. And after the Cape campaign, we weren't successful. Laurie Jaffe said to me, this horse must run at Turfentine. He needs a long straight. He doesn't need the short straight of Germiston, where the classic is to be run. So we must take on the older horses, and in the Summer Cup. Well, it wasn't the Summer Cup, it was the
Demonstrators, yeah.
Yeah, the Summer Cup's moved so many times, I'm confused.
Yeah.
I couldn't sleep at night thinking about this. I thought he must stick with the 3-year-old still. And I eventually put my thoughts down on paper and took them through to Laurie Jaffe. I said, this is my plan. I think he can win the Classic. Change of tactics, he wants a gallop. We might have to make our own pace if nothing goes, compared to how we were racing him, just off the pace.
London News, a big leader in the Classic. Sir Vader Sun is coming out of the pack, but London News inside the last 100 is still clear, and he's got the Classic at his mercy, and it all because of Pierre Stradom. He rode a great race today.
When I turned for home, shook him up and the race was won. I think he's the type of horse that could win the July this year.
Yeah, look, any horse that wins a 3-year-old Classic by 7 lengths, you'd like to fancy your chances in the July, you know. The July is often a 3-year-old's race, and he was that year, funny enough, the only 3-year-old to get in the race. The next day, he had a temperature of 40 degrees. I mean, he was as sick as a dog, which is quite amazing. It shows you how lucky we were. I mean, he was obviously harbouring something, and it came out with a run. So going into the Guineas, he'd hardly done any work, because now it was 2 months later, and we had to let him get over this virus. By the time the draws came out, he had his first sort of pace work, and I was like, I want to run him because we want to go for the Daily News, but I don't know if I should because he's recovering. And Johnny Gerudis, funny enough, rode him work for me, and he said he feels good, he'll be fine.
That was funny enough, used to work very well for me, and Alec used to actually wait for me when I was finished with Pat, or actually work earlier. Like I said, I was lucky enough to ride him when he did win at Germiston, and I used to work him in his preparations, and look, he was a fantastic animal. And his gallop, Alec was actually quite disappointed. I said to Alec those days, I said, Alec, run him, he'll run well. I mean, he feels good, and everything's going good. And
he ran absolute crack. I think he was drawn like 14 at Gravel, 1600, kiss of death, 75% ready, and he ran third. I couldn't believe it. I was so happy with that run.
I tell you what, springs back to mind the Daily News 2000. He made us look quite ordinary. I mean, at the 1000, Pierre actually started picking it up. He actually won the race, I think, at about the 1200. He just streaked away, made us look quite ordinary. He was, on his day, fantastic athlete.
Dancing in the rain second, Harmony Forever's trying to close in, but it's all London News in the Daily News 2000. Harmony Forever's trying to close in, but read the headlines, London News in the Daily News 2000 by 5 lengths, very impressive.
Well, that was the first time any horse in South Africa's history had broken 2 minutes as a 3-year-old.
As a 3-year-old, yeah, I think it's the second time it's been done only.
Your full time before that?
It's a world-class time if you think about it. To break 2 minutes for 2,000 metres, it's a world-class time.
Following in the footsteps of your legendary father, who's got 7 Vodacom or 7 Julys under his name, it must have been immense pressure. You obviously knew you had a very generous, very sound, very honest horse, but take us through those preceding weeks.
Well, it was more than weeks, it was months. But you know, once he won the Daily News, which is a month to go, the way he'd won it, I mean, barring an accident, he's going to win the July. I mean, he was favourite for a long time. He was favourite for 3 months, in fact, I think, and a lot of people had their hopes on him. I mean, to win the July was to fulfil a dream, and London News did that for me. I mean, but then he went beyond that. He fulfilled more dreams that we hadn't even dreamt of.
Now be sure to catch the next exciting edition of Inside Racing for part 2 of the tribute to the great, the one and only London News.
It's everybody's dream in South Africa to win the July. Particularly for me, because since I was a kid, all people spoke about is a July, and like you said, my dad's won 7, which is the SA record, and to get 1 on the board is something we can still try and get another one. I mean, I've joined a group of guys that have won 1. I'd like to join the group of guys that have won 2 now.
It's time for guts and glory as the Rothmans July field dash for the sash, and London News clears away by 4 from Dupadise and stride ahead. On the inside of that one is Pelagos trying to run on from behind Tourissimo, but London News is clear by 4 with 100 to go. Tourissimo's running on the outside, Sleep Machine, London News holding on, Dollar Fortune, Tourissimo, Sleep Machine, London News just won the Rothmans. London News, Sleep Machine came flying on the outside, but what a world...
I remember that dramatic sky and the incredibly cold weather that followed the July. We were all locked into KwaZulu-Natal for weeks, but the pictures of young Vaughan and Shirley and Wilfred on the track and the Jaffies, it was quite incredible for the centenary of the July.
It was also Pierre Straden's first July win, you know, and he won it again since, and he said to me, it's not like the first one. He said after he won it, but it was an amazing day, and as you pointed out, the heavens opened that night. Again, I was very lucky. Like the time we come up with the temperature after the Classic, because come July day, I didn't know what to do with that horse anymore. I didn't need another day. The plan had gone. He was on the verge of going over the top, and the race had to be that day. If it rained and postponed it to a week, I don't know what I would have done.
Now, when the dust settles, and it must have taken days and weeks to settle after this incredible achievement and this dream fulfilled, you become the first horse since politician to win the Queen's Plate in the Met. Yeah. Straight after the July.
Yeah. Look, often a horse wins the July as a 3-year-old, and they struggle after that. And Shirley Costa pointed this out to me before we went to the July. She said, you know, it's not so good to win it with a 3-year-old. But I'm proud to be able to say that London News was one of those 3-year-olds that he didn't end there. He got better.
150 to go. It's London News, a big leader. Ashton Town and Le Fabulous are trying hard to cut back the deficit, but they've got no chance with the champion. London News, too classy, goes on to win it brilliantly from Ashton Town. It's London News out in front. Flying Promise back along the inside, and league titles coming on late. Farrell Mondi's charging up on the outside, but they all have to get to London News. He's been in front a long way, but he's showing his class. London News, too good, goes on to land the Jane B. Met.
So was that the fitting finish to the London News career in South Africa? Fitting, finish, get out of here. London News merely walked from the winner's enclosure at Kenilworth into the quarantine station where he would be prepared for his date with destiny at Sharton Racecourse on the 13th of April 1997. And was it perhaps destiny that Douglas White would ride him?
Yeah, it's like fate, you know. It's like winning the July was fate, you know. Being number 20. I don't know if you know, Henk Vos has done this painting. It took him 5 years. It was 5 years before the 100th year. I helped him out with photos of my dad's at home, and he needed cash. He hadn't finished it, so he sold off some prints, and I bought a print, the canvas prints. There was only 20, and they were going for a bit more money than I wanted to spend, but I've since bought it after winning the July. He made the number 2 print was a sea cottage, and you can see sea cottage in the middle of the picture. Number 2 on his saddlecloth, and he was the number 2 print. Now this is before he'd even finished it. The last horse on the end to balance it was a blank. And number 20 print has become the London News print, and for him to wear number 20 saddlecloth, it's unbelievable. It just fits in. It's like meant to be.
Also, more incredible, the fact that now Dougie is a resident jockey in Hong Kong. You managed to get the horse into quarantine. Everything's going smoothly. He's a gentleman of a horse to work with, and the quarantine goes beautifully. Well,
you know, it's very funny. They said we want one horse from South Africa. Now, the guys that are doing the nominations from here, Graham Hawkins, whatever, we nominate one horse. Not like other countries get asked for one horse, they nominate 20.
10, yeah.
10, 20 horses and one gets there, but we nominate one horse. Nothing goes wrong. He goes in quarantine, he gets there, he wins the race. It was like, just lucky. Yeah, lucky. I mean, look, I don't suppose any other horse would have wanted to go, but it's just funny the way it worked out. Yeah.
But he gets to go with his mate Trojan Hero, and of course Rock Candy was a work companion for him. Yeah. Eric Sands helped you there. Martin Ace helped you a lot.
Now, you know all these horses because you were there.
Yes, I'm very happy to be associated with him. As you say, it is a big responsibility, but I'm not left in the dark. I keep in close contact with Alec up in Joburg, and things work out quite easily between the two of us.
Remember, you got the bloody helicopter to film his gallop at Kenilworth.
Yeah, he enjoyed it at the pull-up, but he didn't. Well, it might seem funny, and of course it was quite difficult at the time, but only due to the lateral thinking of Jimmy Lithgow were we able to hire a helicopter to film the gallop that London News partook in with Trojan Hero, Rock Candy, and of course a whole host of loyal supporters. He galloped absolutely beautifully, although not quite getting to Trojan Hero at the closing stage of the gallop. The reason for the hiring of the helicopter? Well, at that stage, the Gold Circle television department were filming a wedding. Well, let's put that one behind us, as Douglas White and Alec Laird confer about London News' gallop, Martin Ace and Themba Mfele making sure that the big chestnut was happy after his gallop. Obviously, it was rather warm at that time of the year, but he acquitted himself in exemplary style, and Carl Nieses was very happy with the work of Trojan Hero, who was to go along as his stable companion. And in the background, Ruby Mountain, who was going to the World Games. Looking back on Kenilworth Racecourse, one could only hope with pride that London News would do what he'd done in South Africa, always giving of his very best. That trip from Cape Town to Johannesburg to Amsterdam to the Animal Hotel, John McVeigh, Kevin Conley.
40 hours, door to door. It was quite a trip.
It was now time to weigh London News to ascertain just exactly how much weight he could afford to lose in transit from Cape Town to Johannesburg from Johannesburg to Amsterdam, and then from Amsterdam to Hong Kong. He stood on the scale like a lamb, weighing in at 528 kilos, his departure weight. And as always, casting a watchful eye over his champion. With the help of an eager bystander, Alec Laird prepared to load London News on the float to take him to Cape Town International Airport for his date with destiny. Upon his arrival at Cape Town International Airport, accompanied by Trojan Hero and Ruby Mountain, Dr. John McVeigh and Martin Ace were on the hand, and everybody knew exactly what was required of them, including the inimitable Cape Coloureds, who were preparing the jet stall for flight. KLM experts were also on hand, as well as Kevin Conley, the man who planned his flight. Professor Alan Guthrie, responsible for the protocols now in place. And of course, Alec Laird. As cool as a cucumber, Temba leads London News onto the jet stall to be closed by Professor Guthrie and Kevin Conley, safe and secure and ready for flight. Our Cape correspondent Steve Harley asked Martin Ace for his last impressions of London News.
If he can show them what he's been showing me here, you'll run a great race.
Things can go smoothly as it did today. We are in for a good trip because everybody knows what they're doing. It's all games according to plan.
We take a lot of animals all over the world, and I think this is the first time with horses from here. Well, after 39 years.
And as the 747 jetliner became airborne, it was next stop Amsterdam. There was, however, a significant temperature change in Amsterdam, and for that reason KLM supplied a warm blanket. And after an 8-hour rest, it was next stop, Kai Tak Airport, Hong Kong. For nearly 4 decades, South African horse racing has been in the wilderness. But the London News team has changed all that. Despite 40 days in quarantine and 42 hours in transit, London News arrived in Hong Kong only 9 kilograms lighter and almost fit enough to race.
I think he looks exceptionally well. I think he's taken the trip beautifully, and his work this morning was outstanding. I didn't do much with him, but he was obviously looking around. He's taking it all in, which is a good sign, and he's striding up beautifully. You can't ask more than that. He'll obviously work hard tomorrow, and then I'll have a better idea, but at the moment, all's going well, and he feels spot on.
Look, we got there 15 days early. We were the first horse to get there, and I'm glad we got there with like a week for him to recover, because he got his good workout in a week after arriving there and a week to go, which worked out perfect. If we'd gone closer with that sort of trip, it would have been tough, because it took it out of him a bit, the trip.
Am I correct in saying that there was something that they picked up in his food that wasn't exactly according to their protocol?
She's got a good memory, eh? I don't. It was the food. There was some sort of smooth muscle relaxant in the maize. It was in the rapeseed or something. I mean, the guy came to me with his hand shaking. He says, "Your horse is positive for this drug." When he landed there, and I said, well, I don't know what it's about, and I immediately phoned John McVeigh, who, after scratching his head for like not even a minute, he said, must be the food, and we had the food tested, and true it was. But I mean, from that time, it was the week of the race, he switched food to the local Hong Kong food that they had for us, and he came up clear the next time they tested it.
Huge sigh of relief.
Oh. There was no doubt in my mind, but yeah, that it would be clear. Yeah.
Now, you're staying in the Royal Park Hotel, and you've got a guy that's still working for you today, Temba Mfele. What a gentleman. It must have been an incredible experience for him.
Champion guy. I mean, he was the best guy I could have taken with me, because he's a good rider. He's a brilliant work rider. All the jocks, Dougie White included, they know him well from the track. Quiet, gets on his business, and a very nice rider. He settles horses with his hands. He's gem to have. He didn't get upset on the plane. He's settled in well, and just got to hold thumbs. He'll run a good race because he's an honest horse.
On the eve of the race, Hong Kong was abuzz with London news fever. Racing fanatic Jimmy Lai.
When I talk for all the Hong Kong people, we know London News is the best horse here in Hong Kong.
The pomp and circumstance of the parade ring at Sharton would have upset most horses, but London News took it in his stride. And with familiar faces like Basil Marcus and his brother Anton, and indeed our former champion jockey Piers Stradom, it was like being back home. And as jockey Douglas White was formulating his own strategy, so too were the punters. A hush of anticipation descended on Sharton Racecourse, and London News faced his moment of truth.
There's the OK, the gates are back and they're off to the roar of the crowd. London News, the South African, has jumped quite well, but Oriental Express going forward and Privilege as expected, wanting to take up the running. Privilege in the middle is trying to cross over London News and will do so. Oriental Express deep third and Anas Mirabilis is poised beautifully fourth. Peak of Perfection fifth the inside. Adjurati is deep around DeVille and Minor Bridge getting back with also the Grey Avedon. City Luck is three deep around it with Sapio. The front runner is still Privilege. Off the back section near the 1,000, it's Privilege by 2. London News is second. Anas Mirabilis trying to wheel the leader in, goes to third from Oriental Express. Next DeVille, Adjurati and Perfect Bound in the straight, 400 to go. It's Privilege in front. London News and Anas Mirabilis go up to him. The South African in the middle draws to the lead now. London News goes to Privilege. Anas Mirabilis three deep at them. Privilege won't give in. London News, the pride of South Africa, goes up and goes to the lead. Privilege on the inside is coming again. London News in front. Privilege won't give in. London News doing the better, and London News, he's everything they said and he wins. London News by a half. The raps on him were as big as you could imagine. The South African brigade told us he was going to be measured as one of the greats of the world. They've been in the wilderness for many years, and many question the depth of the South African racing.
Well, there was only one way to answer the skeptics, and that was from the winner's circle. And with emotions running high, the elated connections, Laurie and Jean Jaffe, trainer Alec Laird, and jockey Douglas White savoured the moment of triumph. London News had achieved international recognition for South African horse racing. Horse racing, the sport of the people.
Yeah, I've been asked that question before, which was nicer for me, and it's I think the July. I mean that day in Hong Kong obviously was outstanding. Laurie Jaffe was always quick with a word, and he could give you a speech at the drop of a hat, and pretty good speech. It's the only time I've seen him speechless was in Hong Kong. He couldn't talk.
And they wouldn't give him the check in case the horse was positive. I remember that.
They had an argument. Yeah. He said, "I won the race. We must pay the bill." He didn't want to use his forex.
Well, who could blame Laurie Jaffe, and anybody who attended that wonderful party at the Peninsula will never forget it. It was now Barry Hills' turn to prepare London News for the Prince of Wales stake to be run at Royal Ascot over 10 furlongs.
Having been with him all along and going to Hong Kong and that, leaving him behind and he goes to England, that was a bit of a void already. And when I went across, I went to watch him race at Royal Ascot and seeing him in the ring, he looked great. To see him walk around that parade ring at Royal Ascot, it brought a tear to my eye.
Yeah.
I was very proud of him, even though he was in the care of Barry Hills at the time. He ran incredibly. He was trounced by a brilliant filly, and the horse that ran second,
a good stallion.
Al Harth. I tell you what, if you saw Al Harth that day, he was the most beautiful horse. I couldn't believe what a nice horse he was, because I've told people since, if you saw Al Harth in the parade ring for the July, you wouldn't look for another horse. You'd turn around and knock people over to get to the bookmaker if you just saw him walk around the parade ring, that horse. He was beautiful.
Yeah.
And he got beat 8 lengths by Bosrasham, and he was 5 lengths in front of us.
Yeah.
So the quality of English horses are pretty high when you're taking on the best. And what's worse, he was giving them weight. Yeah. They're very good horses, and he had to give them weight because of the conditions. He's a Grade 1 winner and hard.
I've been coming to Royal Ascot for probably 40 years. I never thought of a South African horse running here, never mind owning one. So to me, it's really quite magic. And I am thrilled, and no matter how he runs, and I do expect him to run well, however, I'll still say it's one of the most memorable racing days of my life.
It's wonderful to be at Royal Ascot. It is the dream of all the owners worldwide, I suppose, to have a run at Ascot. The top horses from all over the world, and London News will certainly do his best.
If my memory serves me correctly, he did win one more race at Greyville. I think it was over 1,400 metres. The Droll, yeah.
Straighten up in the Droll Stakes, and it's Great World out there by 2, but look out for London News, the red sleeves and cap, putting pressure the stand side, Planetary Music between runners, and behind that Modern Day. London News comes to the front, Planetary Music and Great World not finding that much more, and then Modern Day. The sticks out on London News, 200 to go, but he has his nose in front from Modern Day wearing down, and Planetary Music in the shake-up. That's London News just keeping rolling. London News won the Droll Stakes from Planetary Music. Modern Day.
He won his first prep run was the Droll. He ran 4th in the mile at Clearwood from a bad draw. In the July, he didn't shape. He was just off them. Dougie was adamant. Dougie got off. He says he'll win the Champion Stakes. Did the same thing on counter action. Says this was a win, the Champion Stakes, but the decision was made to retire him, which is probably fair. And that was it. The end of his racing. He didn't quite get back to what he had before, coming back and carrying big weights, but he didn't disgrace himself either.
When London News's racing days were over and he had given of his very best, he went back to the place of his birth, Wilfred and Shirley Costa's Cheveley stud. The London News Syndicate, managed by John Freeman, now made a decision that London News needed a new change of environment and he needed some different mares. And it was Terry and Barbara Silcock's Starston stud that became his new home. John Freeman, who did a sterling job of managing London News, reflects on his career, what he meant to him and all those around him.
London News was with Terry Silcock when he was diagnosed with, was found with colic symptoms, and then unfortunately never came out of it. When they did the autopsy, they found that he had cancer. He was riddled with cancer, and Dr. Rouse in Colesberg said to us that the great tragedy was that he found the entire body and all his vital organs were riddled, and including his heart, which he said was one of the biggest horse hearts imaginable. I think it's fitting that we pay tribute to London News as one of South Africa's greatest sports ambassadors. He was the first horse in 47 years to campaign successfully abroad, and when he won the QE2 in Hong Kong, it was a very emotional time for all South African horsemen in particular, but I don't think that anybody who was keen on sports missed the occasion. He was a phenomenal racehorse, won the Durban July as a 3-year-old and became champion 3-year-old and horse of the year, and the first I believe 3-year-old to win the July Met combination in that sequence. He won the Daily News in Southern Hemisphere record time, and the idea behind him going to Hong Kong came to Laurie Jaffe with obviously his international connections, and it was Laurie's determination and passion for racing that got the South African quarantine station built, and hence all the exports that we've been able to race successfully overseas since then. He came back to South Africa, having gone via England, where he ran 4th in a Group 1 race behind that wonderful filly Bos Rosham, and he threw in the Drill Horse Stakes just for good measure. Wilfred and Shirley Costa, who bred him at Cheveley, now taken over by Vaughan, were very passionate about him, flew over to Hong Kong, and I don't think many people will forget that for a long time. Your idea to pay tribute to him speaks of your passion, and I thank you for that and herald you and congratulate you with the idea. To Terry and Barbara, who looked after him in his last years of life, thank you for all you did. All the breeders that supported him, we will carry on supporting the horse. We've started a Facebook for him. Anybody wanting to have a look at the tributes that have poured in, go onto Facebook and have a look at what we've posted there. The pictures of Hong Kong and various other pictures have been posted there as well. Finally, just to say that I think anybody that's buying a Daughter of London News as a potential broodmare in future will be rewarded, because he's a superbly bred horse, and I see breeders of note already picking them up. He's certainly produced a number of good fillies, and I'm sure he'll continue to do, because he's got three or four more books to come at the sales in future. Thank you.